G'day guys, it's Jake here. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Please do your own research when it comes to investing. Alright, let's go. Alright, so the topic for this video, we'll be going over Ethereum and obviously Bitcoin and the rest of the altcoin market and looking at what happened yesterday with the launch of the spot ETF and just sort of overall charts, looking over what happens and what will happen, ALTS versus BTC and the likes. So we'll start with the ETF, ETH ETF. We have Ethereum ETFs had 1.08 billion in volume for their launch day. Bitcoin ETFs in comparison had 4.66 billion on volume on their launch day. So it made up almost a quarter of the volume on launch day, so it didn't do nearly as much as Bitcoin as expected, but nevertheless, we still got pretty good volume. As you can see, Grayscale led the charge, 458 million. Then we have BlackRock, 250, Fidelity, 137, Bitwise, Grayscale. Again, got two different trusts. Then VanEck, Franklin, Vesco, and 21 shares. So the new kids on the block. And yeah, totaling over $1 billion, which is pretty good. And the source Bloomberg. So yeah, pretty good day nevertheless for ETH launching on the New York Stock Exchange. So yeah, very, very impressive, but has a long way to go to catch up to Bitcoin, that's for sure. And what to see going forward, whether that has an impact on price or whether it's just a buy the rumor, sell the news. Wait in the coming weeks and months. I do think next year it'll definitely be a catalyst for it to go up. I believe Ethereum could reach heights of 10K plus in a cycle, I believe. Quite very, very, very possible, given the interest that it's receiving. And yeah, especially ETF. So all good. All right, so Ash Crypto is giving an analysis of altcoins. Now will be the best trade for easy 10x gains in the next 6 to 12 months. Reasons: the altcoin market cap is testing major support levels. The ETH ETF trading will started yesterday. Altcoin capitulation has happened in the recent dip. Massive alt season is coming. And this guy's he's been in the space since 2015. And Ash, bloke or a girl, I don't know. And just been bullish the whole way through, essentially. And that's all I've seen from him is his bullish tweets. Never, bearish. It's bullish, bullish, bullish. And that's his chart. He reckons it's going to follow that and head up to here, 3.6 trillion. And yeah, whether we see a further dip to test support and then continue up, it could be right. Or we could come back down to these lows made in 2023, 2022, back at around the 300 billion market cap. This is total 3. So everything excluding ETH and Bitcoin. And he sees it going just where it is and up from here. I don't know about that, but I'm just seeing a lot of bullishness now since the ETH ETF launch, and just the hype up to it. And people are up from here, and here we go. Alt season starting now, which is absolutely ludicrous because I'll show you in the charts coming up that we're not in alt season, and I'll tell you when alt season starts with confirmation to give you a better understanding when to prepare yourself for the explosive move in the altcoin market when the money flows from Bitcoin to the altcoins and they outperform Bitcoin. It's most likely end of next year, probably going into 2026. We'll see how we go, but definitely not there yet. Okay. So we have Bitcoin news. BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF has surpassed the NASDAQ's tracking ETF QQQ in year-to-date flows. I'll zoom into this. So quite impressively, the iShares BlackRock Trust, Bitcoin Trust by BlackRock, has surpassed the famous QQQ, which launched in the late 90s for the NASDAQ, and it has year to date had more inflows than the NASDAQ. It's amazing, absolutely. Bitcoin Trust, this is breaking records left, right, and center. It's still got to catch up to the stock market, total stock market ETF, and then you got the S&P and the famous Vanguard one, which is at 50, which is fair enough. It's the S&P 500, but surpassing the NASDAQ year to date, very, very, very impressive for Bitcoin. Very, very. It's going to have a big year next year. We're going into the late end of next year, I believe. We'll have a cool-off period before then. But this just shows it's a legitimate asset. It's here to stay. And I had some skepticism about Bitcoin. I thought, no, this is too good to be true. The founder going, launching it and going, missing, or potentially just disappeared, essentially just gone off the face of the earth and never heard from again after 2010 or 11. But he left behind, whoever he is, left behind a fantastic asset that's going to be here to stay for the future. And yeah, it's very telling seeing that it's passing the NASDAQ in flows year to date. So numbers don't lie. All right, so another Bitcoin tweet from JT. Global liquidity versus Bitcoin. One of the three things are going to happen. Bitcoin is going to fall to meet liquidity. 2, liquidity is going to rise to meet Bitcoin. And 3, a combination of 1 and 2. Have a great day. So this is his tweet. And the global liquidity is in yellow and the Bitcoin price is in blue. And there's a big wide gap between liquidity and price. And usually Bitcoin price tends to follow liquidity. As liquidity goes up, so does Bitcoin. Okay, and Bitcoin takes a peak. Liquidity comes down, so does Bitcoin. Bitcoin goes up. Liquidity trades sideways, then Bitcoin comes back down because there's nothing happening. And then liquidity shoots up first, then Bitcoin follows it. All right, so it follows it, and then it tops, and they both come down, lower high. And then when liquidity goes down, Bitcoin sort of, was going to correct after liquidity corrected. And after that, we had Bitcoin shoot up and liquidity's been going down. So global liquidity matters, and it's interesting to see if global liquidity catches up to Bitcoin. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Bitcoin's going to catch up to local liquidity and get a corrective cool-off period going into the recession at the end of the year. So when the reality kicks in, when the Fed, start cutting rates, I think it's going to be time of risk off. Things are going to break. They only cut when there's bad economic data, which is not good for risk assets, and I think Bitcoin will hold up in this recession. Okay, so on the charts now, and we're looking at firstly at Ethereum. We'll go to the daily to see what happened of the day, the ETF, and this is the daily candle here. We pretty much did nothing. It wasn't a price or narrative driven event because price has done really nothing. And so still trading sideways from since mid-July. It's done absolutely zilch. So yeah, even with the the inflows that it had, it hasn't done anything. Which I was talking about in another video, that people think that narrative drives price. It's certainly not the case. And it shows it here. The price really leads narrative. And there's something going to happen, price will fall first or go up first before the thing actually happens. Okay. But people think anticipation is more important than the actual event, which you can say it's true as well. And we see it's nothing happening with Ethereum. It's still in this sort of choppy range, so since you form the top 4,000, you come back down to this level at around 2870, chop around a bit, come back up. You don't quite get a high, you get a lower high, and then we come back down again, and so had this triangle which was sort of formed all the way back from February 2024. It's October 2023. So the rising trend line. Tested it once, twice, 3 times, and we just smashed right through it, and we're sort of below it. And we came back up into this triangle, up in this mid-level here, mid-range. And if you look at the fib retracement levels for this, from the recent top to the immediate bottom, we are sitting at a 0.618 retracement, which is very, very common, the golden zone. And you got 0.5 is another common retracement level. But 6.8 is very, very, very common, and we're sort of sitting at it at the moment. Interesting to see if we do, if we do come back down. We'll test this line here, and we continue up to try and break out of this triangle. Head higher, head up to the races from there. Up and up and up. Or something happens where we do have a rejection, and we fail to hold, and we break. Okay, we head down back to 28.70, going into August, and the rate cuts happen in September, and then we head down, and then we head back to $2,000, which is where I'm seeing it happen to reach towards the end of the year in Q4. I have to wait and see what happens. That's what I think. ETH will likely bottom around 2,000, or possibly even a little bit lower. We'll see what happens. Armageddon hits, we'll probably go back down to 1,100. My lowest target for Ethereum going into the end of the year. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see there. But, we're at the 618, so it's interesting to see what happens and whether we hold or we go up or go down from this level. And the MACD also sort of starting to curl over, which is, not a great thing. And as you can see, it's losing momentum. So is price. So interesting to see if we cross coming days and then curl back down and head back down. And then from there, we'll see really what determines if we're in a left translated cycle, like I mentioned, price going up because we peak at the end of this year, or we go down into the end of the year. So you have a boring Q4, or pretty well a depressing Q4. More or less, if it goes down aggressively, if it goes up aggressively, we have an exciting Q4. Okay, so that's Ethereum. Bitcoin, sort of selling off a little bit. The daily candle got a bit of a sell-off, top, bottom, 3% move essentially. And yeah, it's made a big move, so it's cooling off a little bit, which makes sense. And we're in this channel. Okay, so from here to there, come back down, and sort of come up to the top part of the channel. Will we continue down? It's 51k, which is my target, or will it, just rest here at this trend line, upsloping trend line I've drawn all the way back from October, late October to January, and now we broke through it. But can we sort of hold it as we have a $61,000 support line here, 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 there, and now, and then head higher going into the end of the year, and then off for the races. Left translated peak at the end of the year. We'll have to wait and see with that one. I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen. Given the economic environment at the moment that we sort of face, the Fed is looking at the data. If the data is really weak and getting worse and worse and worse, to get unemployment continue to rise, it's not going to be risk on. It's going to be risk off, and this is going to sell off. 51k is my close target at the end of the year, and going into next year, I believe we can head down even lower to 41k, which corresponds with where the Bitcoin spot ETF launched around here, and also this upward sloping trend line, which I have drawn here. I'll give you a bit better representation on the weekly. to show you a bit better. So we have these levels here, you know, from the bear market bottom to the summer lull from last year, and coming up here. Okay, which is quite interesting to see really what happens there. You can also look at the Bitcoin risk, which gives you an idea of what can really happen. I'll chuck this on a logarithmic scale. We can look at the risk metric here, and I'll just turn these drawings off for a sec so we can see it clearly. And as you can see, we are hovering around 45 risk. Okay, 45 risk, and we're having, you know, we're in this sort of mid-level here, 65k, and this blue line is 0 essentially. So it says 30k. All right, I'll just turn this off again. Sorry, and the top is 100. Okay, so at 166k at current levels, righto. So anywhere in between, we have risk levels in between. I can show you even better what I mean. And turn performance mode off and turn the opacity up. Should be right to go. Awesome. So this gives you a better understanding of where we're looking. I'll go on different charts to show even clearly. So one without the drawings. And you can see we're in this sort of mid-level here, these bands, okay? And if you head back down to 40k, which corresponds to the top of this band, we're looking at a 20 risk, okay, which is on the dots here. So I'll just show you a bit clearly there. We had 30 down here. We want to see it in the mid range of 20, which is my buying zone. Okay, I've got a buying zone area here of when it gets below 30 risk, as I mentioned on the previous video. And answers there, it's time to accumulate. Okay, it's Bitcoin accumulation. You know, as we're still in QT, all right, quantitative tightening. But once we enter QE, that is the point to buy altcoins. Okay, so altcoin buying will happen, and I'll show you another chart what I mean by that. So I'll go to ETH Bitcoin, ETH versus Bitcoin, and you can see this is a logarithmic chart. I might go back to standard, and I have a trend line drawn. Okay, and we had the lines in between, which correspond to when the Fed go from quantitative easing to quantitative tightening. So QE, QT, QE, green, and red is QT. And I'll show you a chart just to represent what I'm talking about. So if I pull up a comparison symbol, pull up the Fed balance sheet, Federal Reserve, you can see we had a flat line here, the balance sheet, which is quite consistent, quite steady. And this is QE, okay? And then ETH did rise, you know, up into this QE. We had a trough there. But against Bitcoin, 53% drop. And then we continued up into the bull market of 2017. And then we had the secondary top, which is a lower high, okay? And then we entered QT. See the balance sheet started to go down, okay? So we did face this period where the balance sheet dropped, right? And what happened to ETH Bitcoin? It bled. So ETH bled to Bitcoin all the way down until we pivoted, until the Fed went to QE, which is the pivot point where the balance sheet started to go up, okay? Slowly at first, and then quickly a massive jump up after the pandemic. And what happened to ETH Bitcoin? It bottomed as a low, as the lowest low, ETH Bitcoin, and it just rose all the way up. If you keep following it all the way, keeps, you know, rising as the balance sheet went up. And then the Fed had a meeting in mid-January saying they're going to do QT. And once the meeting, after the meeting happens, get this sell off. Okay. The ETH Bitcoin and the balance sheet goes down, and we entered QT. So quantitative tightening, as they started selling their bonds. Okay. That's the point. They're starting in restrictive mode because the economy's overheated with inflation, and the Fed responded with QT. Okay. And you can see this upward sloping trend line, all right, which starts all the way back in 2016. We came down to it, close to it, 53% drop from the breakdown period. So you can see, oops, let's go to there. I'll take off the balance sheet for a sec. You can see, we came down to it, a 53% drop, and then continued up. We also had it come down again. All right, after this breakdown period, so this line, we had support, we broke down, and we touched it, and that was the bottom as Fed got to QT, and we continued to the upside, of course. And as this trend line slopes up and up and up, you can see it sort of heads to this level here, which corresponds to Q4 of this year. And I do believe we'll have a bottom around end of the year. And it's only a 28% drop, so it's not from the breakdown period of the support line here, touch, fake out, and then we're going to break down there. So it's less of a drop than this one because it's less volatile. Okay, 38% and 53%. It was a smaller asset back then. We're going to have a less of a drop, 28%, but it'll correspond to this box around 3.5 to 4 of Satoshi of a Bitcoin, essentially 0.04 of a Bitcoin. So that's where I see ETH Bitcoin going, and it just seems so ominous. It's going to happen due to I think this is by the sell the news, and as I said, the economy going to recession end of the year, and this will bleed to Bitcoin. The lower risk assets will outperform during this down period, and we could be down here for a while. But to see what happens with the balance sheet, like I said, the balance sheet will have to go to QE mode. Okay, so you want to see the balance sheet. Once it bottoms out, you want to start ticking up. And that's the point where you want to start looking into buying Ethereum or the altcoin market, because it'll bottom out, and then you need to wait for a higher low, then start to go an uptrend. That's when you start to buy Ethereum and the altcoin market, as we're sort of bottomed out and we're confirming that we're going up. That's when the money will start bleeding from Bitcoin to the alts, and they'll outperform going into the later stage. I don't know how long it's going to go for, but I don't know how high it's going to go either. I'm not sure how high it'll go, but it really depends on when they'll start to go back to QT again. Okay, when something starts to break, when they'll do that. All right. So yeah, that is my analysis on ETH Bitcoin, and as you can see, I can just, before we go to the next chart, I can show you real quick that we have a high there, the lower high, we have a bottom. All right. Okay, I might just go on a logarithmic chart so it's a bit easier to see. And then we came back down to this level again. Okay, we traded sideways and then we went down. So that's the pattern. Okay, we had a high, we had a big dip, we had a lower high, same as that one. So high, low, lower high, and we came back to this level again. Okay, and then we traded sideways for a bit, which we did here, and then we went down. Okay, and same as this one to the next cycle, 2021. We had a high, which is a bit messier than that one and that one. The one is clear. And then we had a low, big dip, lower high than that one. We came back down to this low, like the other ones I just mentioned, and then we're going sideways. And will we break down? Okay, that's the interesting thing to see. We have to wait and see for that one to correspond to this trend line, which you can see on the normal chart. Okay, just lines up the trend line, and also with these patterns that I just mentioned. Okay, what it plays out. See if it'll hit my target by the end of the year. And it's, yeah, so that's the interesting thing that we'll see. ETH Bitcoin. Also look at others Bitcoin. So we had a peak here at the bull market, 2018-ish. Peaked a bit later than Bitcoin. It came down 67% from made a low, rose up 65%, dropped 62%. So looking at, like, an average of mid 60s, down, up, down. After QT, we got to QE. We marked the bottom. The exact bottom was QE. Exact top was QT. And all this was QE, okay, for that, going into the bull market. So it was all up, up, up. And then we got a huge roof QE. We had a top QT. So around mid-Jan, the Fed meeting happened. We topped. QT was announced, and it happens shortly after that. Balance sheet. So quickly show you. And as you can see, balance sheet there. Had a sideways period, same as ETH. Bitcoin, we had this big rise up. Okay, because the balance sheet, when the QT happened, the balance sheet sold off. So did ETH, others sold off. ETH Bitcoin, others sold off as well. He had a QE, and then the balance sheet started to go up, and so did others. Bitcoin went up. Others outperformed Bitcoin, and then QT happened, and then it's been bleeding to Bitcoin. Okay, not saying that some are doing really well. Some new coins have been launched outside the top 10, but ones that have stuck around for a while that are outside the top 10 are not doing as well as Bitcoin. Okay, so that's just keep in mind. And I do see it sort of playing out the same as this one. We had a 67% drop, we had a 68% drop, 69% pump, we had a 65% pump, slightly less, and 62% drop. Okay, to mark the bottom, QE. And this lines up with the late 60s. So roughly a 70% drop would put this level at 0.08, okay, which is this level. Okay. This here. All right, the QE pivot, and this level here. Okay. So I'm expecting to go back down to these lows again to line up with that thesis. Okay, that we get that same, that plays out into the end of the year. Okay, we come down and break as the balance sheet continues down, and then we find a bottom and we continue up. Okay, and that will be the pivot point where we have an alt season. All right, that's that analysis. And then you can talk about total 3, but it's pretty much the same thing. Show you the balance sheet. We have QE, which goes back further. We had a big rise up. We had a QT, we dropped. All right, we had a rate cut here. Show you the rate cuts. So we had 1 month before the rate cut happens. The rate cut happened here. This is a month before it. We broke this level, this support level. All right, and as we're still in QT, which means it was going to bleed back to Bitcoin, all the total 3. So everything except for ETH, Bitcoin divided by Bitcoin. And we broke down from the support, and then we found a bottom once the Fed went to QE. Okay, the exact bottom was there. We went up. We had a little bit of a down period here with a fake out, which is a bit odd. And then we shot up. We had QT. It popped, and then it bled back to Bitcoin. Okay, all the way down. The balance sheet went down. And now we're sort of trading sideways. And like this period, we had a support level. Okay. We had the rates going up, and we had a flattening out period, pausing. A month before, we broke the support. or the rate cuts arrived. We have volume rising up, being bleeding down, and also we're about to cut. Okay, in September is most likely. Will it break a month before, which is around mid-August? I'm expecting it to break. Okay, a full breakdown, and we bottom out at 0.25. Okay, as rate cuts arrive. Then when we get to QE, balance sheet, orange balance sheet starts to go like that. I believe the bottom will be in for total 3 minus USDT divided by Bitcoin, and alt season will begin. That's when alt season starts, okay? Once the balance sheet starts to tick back up. Yeah, so we're looking at that, and I'll just quick charger. So yeah, that's when I believe alt season will start, when the balance sheet starts to starts to curve back up. We find a bottom at this 0.25 level, which is basically this level and this bottom. And when the QE happened here, okay, back there, and also it goes back even further back to 2017. So been touched this level a fair few times, and the top level's pretty much this secondary peak that I've drawn here. Okay, so it's sort of gone down, up, down, up, down. It's like an oscillator, up and down. Right, we're topped here. All right, at this secondary peak here. And will we come back down to these levels and then mark a bottom before the balance sheet, the orange thing, it starts to curl back up. We find a bottom and then we start going up. Probably sooner than that, but yeah. Sooner rather than later, Q4 of the next year, going into 2026. And yeah, so the rate cut mid-August will be the breakdown period. This level, which are sort of right on it right now, we're sort of sitting right on this level, just waiting to break, and then Bitcoin will outperform severely. Alts will capitulate. That's when I think Ash Crypto is wrong that have already capitulated. They will not happen. They will happen after we bottom. It's when this is the period where it sort of shoots right down. And I'll show you Bitcoin dominance. This is when Bitcoin dominance will explode. Okay, and this is Bitcoin dominance. So it's pretty much the inverse of that other chart that I just showed you. Okay, it's the exact opposite. QE happens, we bleed, we head down. Okay, so Bitcoin is underperforming its alts, balance sheet flat, down, same thing as the other one. As it goes down, QT happens, it finds a bottom, and Bitcoin outperforms the altcoin market as we head higher. Then we find QE, all right, which is after the first rate cut happens. Not long after that, going into the second rate cut, we topped, and then we had MACD cross, and then we headed down, all right, as QE happened, all right, QE happened, and then Bitcoin bled to the altcoins. It kept bleeding until the announcement of the meeting of the Fed. Then QT arrived. All right. I mean, Bitcoin dominance bottomed, and ever since then, Bitcoin has been outperforming most of the altcoin market. Not all, but most. And we've been trending higher. Okay. Very much so. Very strong uptrend. It's not alt season. It'll be alt season once we break down below this 54% level. We break below it, and then we head lower. Okay. That to me is alt season. And that's when you looking at altcoins. And that's after the Fed cuts rates. Okay, this blue thing cuts at least a couple cuts. Let's just feel the impact. And then you want to see the balance sheet start to roll over. Okay, but before that happens, it'll continue to trend down, I believe, into the end of the year. This yellow box, right, end of the year. And what will happen is Bitcoin dominance will head higher. okay, up to here, which is 60% dominance, which also corresponds to a Fibonacci retracement level from top to the bottom, okay, which is 61.8. Okay, so a very common retracement level I see Bitcoin dominance heading to, which is the breakdown period of the last cycle. So 2021 cycle, we broke down aggressively from this point. Okay, so I believe this is where we're going to head before dominance peaks, and then we head lower, and then we have alt season. Okay, so it'll take its time, probably longer than expected. We have to wait until this QE happens, and the balance sheet starts to tick up. That's the time to enter the altcoin market. Just be patient, wait till it happens, and you will be rewarded. Okay, because money goes from the impatient to the patient. That's what Warren Buffett said once, and I do believe it's true. So, yeah. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that one. Just going over the ETH ETF launch inflows that occurred. Also looking at Bitcoin's inflows and surpassing the NASDAQ, which is quite staggering year to date. Inflows are better than NASDAQ, Invesco Trust. And then just going over some price. The ETH, reacted to its ETF launch and really didn't do anything. Bitcoin, the rest of the market didn't do much. And then we compared the ETH versus the altcoins. ETH versus Bitcoin, to go over what the scenario we're playing out towards the end of the year, according to what the Fed will do, and the time to get into the altcoins to start alt season. Because it depends on these factors, economic factors, and when the Fed start to pivot from quantitative tightening to quantitative easing, and then we'll have a very big alt season, I believe, be huge, just as big as last year, the year before. There's more projects, they're building better products, utilities there, and yeah, I think the ETF hype will definitely go into the next bull run. And not there yet. We'll see a recession first. Might be a short recession. See how the Fed will respond to that. And yeah, from there, buckle up, get ready, and I'll guide you through it. But at the moment, just stay cautious. There's too much risk in the market, and we have to wait for the stock market to roll over. And like I said, the Fed to respond with rate cuts to happen, and that'll be a bad part to happen. I reckon when that happens, it's not going to be for good reasons. Like most people are predicting, rate cuts come and it's bullish. It's only when they had things under control, it starts to be bullish, and they start buying assets again. It's what they do, not what they say, is what's important. So pay very close attention to the balance sheet of the Federal Reserve if you want to get in the altcoin market. Okay, it's very, very, very crucial. So with that being said, I want you to smash the like, comment your thoughts below, subscribe to stay updated, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.